Good morning, dear students, and welcome to today's session. In this tutorial video, today we are going to discuss the play The Merchant of Venice, and we'll be doing Act 2, Scene 6. This particular scene takes place outside Shylock's house. Jessica, disguised as a boy, eloped with Lorenzo, taking some of Shylock's possessions, jewels, and ducats. She is quite ashamed of her boy's disguise and also because of her thievery or act of stealing. At the end of the scene, Antonio informs Graciano of the winds turning out to be favorable, and therefore Bassanio was to set sail to Belmont before the scheduled hour. So the scene emphasizes the mutual desires of Jessica and Lorenzo, which bridge religious and cultural differences. Before we go on to the textual explanation of this particular scene, let us try to understand the key points of the scene. Now this scene, Act 2, Scene 6, culminates the subplot of the elopement of Jessica and Lorenzo. That is, the subplot of Jessica Lorenzo elopement comes to the conclusion in this particular scene as they elope together in the darkness of the night. Graciano and Salerino, who are the friends of Lorenzo and who were supposed to take part in the masquerade along with Lorenzo, they wait outside Shylock's house for meeting Lorenzo, for keeping their appointment with Lorenzo, but unfortunately Lorenzo is late to arrive. However, after his arrival, Lorenzo seems to be apologetic about his late arrival and assures them of no delay in the act of elopement. He calls out to Jessica, who is disguised as a boy, as a page, and when she appears on the projected roof of her house, she is guilty and embarrassed of both her boy's disguise and thievery. Her embarrassment continues as she has to act as the torch bearer for Lorenzo in the masquerade. And the very idea of holding a candle to her shames, already she is ashamed of herself because of her disguise and because of the act of stealing. Despite that, she has to act as the torch bearer, and the job of a torch bearer, as you all know, is to hold a lighted torch or candle in his hand and show the path to the participants in the masquerade. So if she holds a torch, then she is holding a candle to her own shames, and that idea is very frightening as it could expose her identity when she is supposed to remain concealed, hidden, disguised while eloping with Lorenzo. However, Lorenzo is able to assure and convince her to fetch more ducats from her father's house before leaving it. And the lovers, that is Lorenzo and Jessica, exit with Salerino, leaving Graciano behind. Graciano meets Antonio, who is in a frantic search for him all over Venice. Antonio had been looking for Graciano all over Venice, And finally, towards the concluding part of the scene, he happens to meet with Graciano. Having met with Graciano, Antonio informs him that Bassanio's party has been called off. There is no masquerade since the wind has changed and the time is right to set sail to Belmont. Graciano, like Bassanio, is eager to sail off from Venice to the promising and romantic setup of Belmont. Now, this is what happens in this scene, and what is the key aspect here is that this particular scene provides an explanation or makes the motive of Shylock's revenge stronger and invokes sympathy in the audience for this otherwise villainous character. He seems to have been wronged not just by the hostile Christian society but also by his own daughter, who betrays her father's trust by eloping with a Christian youth named Lorenzo, and also by stealing the hard earned money, jewels, and precious stones of her father. So that act of Jessica makes Shylock even more revengeful. Now let us try to understand the text. Act 2, Scene 6. This scene takes place in Venice, and to be more particular, it takes place before Shylock's house. The characters present are Graciano and Salarino, who were then waiting for their friend Lorenzo, who had failed to meet with them on the appointed hour. And these two characters, Graciano and Salarino, as they were supposed to take part in the masque, therefore they were masked, or they were dressed in masking clothes. And you can see in the image here the people wearing mask. Okay, so they were masked like this, and they were waiting outside Shylock's house for meeting with Lorenzo. So Graciano comments, "This is the penthouse under which Lorenzo desired us to make stand." Now, penthouse means a house with a projecting roof which forms an overhead shelter. Okay, you just see when you enter the administrative building of the school office, you will find that there is a projected roof there, okay, which forms an overhead shelter. Okay, so that type of house having a projected roof is referred to as a penthouse. So they were standing under the penthouse. They were standing on the street of Venice, and Graciano points out to Shylock's house, saying that this is the penthouse, okay, the house with a projected roof, where they were supposed to meet with the Lorenzo. And then Salarino reminds, his hour is almost past. Okay. They have been kept waiting for Lorenzo, but Lorenzo is late to arrive. The time he gave them is almost past. And Graciano, and it is marvel, he outdwells his hour, for lovers ever run before the clock. It is marvel means it is surprising. Graciano says that it is quite surprising that Lorenzo has delayed longer than the appointed time. He has delayed to keep the appointment. And it is quite surprising because lovers always come before the time fixed by them. So during the days of courtship, lovers are always eager to meet with their beloved. And if they give an appointed time, so they reach before appointed time. They are so excited, they are so eager that they reach before the appointed time. But in this case, it is quite different. Here Lorenzo is late to keep the appointment, and that is why it appears to be surprising to Graciano. And Salarino also agrees with Graciano. He says, "Oh, 10 times faster Venus's pigeons fly to seal love bonds new made than they are wont to keep obliged faith unforfeited." So Salerno also agrees, and he refers to the uh, classical goddess of love, that is Venus. And it is believed that Venus, who is the classical goddess of love, used to ride in a chariot which is drawn by doves, not pigeons. But here in the text it is mentioned as pigeons. Doves of Venus are very quick to seal the promises which are made by new lovers. So love's bonds means the promises made in love. So the promises made in love by the new lovers are quickly sealed by the doves of Venuses. Lovers are always in a great hurry to keep a new engagement than they are to keep their marriage promises. So when they are in their courtship days, they are always in a hurry to keep their promises. But when they are married, they do not show the same enthusiasm. They do not show the same enthusiasm to keep their marriage promises obliged or unbroken. Okay. And Graciano then says it's true, that ever holds. What ever holds? Okay. That ever holds. So what does that refer to? Ever holds means that is always true. So here what does that refer to? That refers to the statement which is made by Salerino. According to Salerino, lovers are always in a great hurry to keep a new engagement than they are to keep their marriage promises unbroken or unforfeited. Graciano agrees to that, and he says it is always true. And in order to prove this point, he gives some more examples. Okay. So what does he want to prove here is that he says all things that are with more spirit chaste than enjoyed. All things that are. Okay, all things that are means or everything that does exist in this mortal world. Everything that exists in this physical world is more enjoyed in the course of their attainment than in the attainment itself. Okay. So try to understand it with an example. Suppose a man desires to climb to the peak of Mount Everest. Now, what he enjoys more? Does he enjoy reaching the peak of the Mount Everest? Or does he enjoy more the journey, the challenges, the difficulties that he has to face during the course of climbing the peak? So, everything is enjoyed more in the course of its attainment than the thing itself. And in order to prove this point, Graciano gives some examples. Okay, let us try to understand the examples. And in order to understand the examples, I have also given you the images there which will help you to understand. He says, "Who riseth from a feast with that keen appetite that he sits down?" So this is a rhetorical question. Let us try to understand this question that is raised by Graciano. Graciano says, "Who leaves a banquet, a feast?" You can see this first example, this is a banquet. In a banquet, in a feast, you get so many delicious things to eat. And also, particularly in Bengal, has a very rich culture of dishes, providing various dishes in marriages, in any feast, in any banquet. So you see, in a marriage, you get all types of things to eat. Okay. So there is fish, there is chicken, there is mutton, and fish also. Varieties of fishes are provided. Then there is sweet, then there is sweet curd, then there is those rasagullas, okay, ice creams, okay, and also desserts. And when we get an invitation for a marriage, okay, for attending a banquet, what is our response? Okay, we don't eat anything in the evening, or in the afternoon also we eat very less. Why? So that we can enjoy the feast. Okay. So, can a person find anyone who leaves a banquet with the same appetite with which he came to the banquet? Okay. Can you find a man who rises from the feast with the same appetite with which he sat down for feast? Obviously, the answer is no. He does not rise up with the same appetite because he has eaten to his heart's content. Then he gives another example of a horse. So, what does he say about this horse? He says, "Where is the horse that doth untread again his tedious measures with the unbated fire that he did pace them first?" Where? So we cannot find this type of horse anywhere. Can we find a horse that traveled again over the same road on its return journey with the same energy and enthusiasm with which it set out? So, when the horse sets out on a journey, it is full of energy, and it sets out with unbated fire. With unbated fire means with undiminished spirit, with a lot of vigor, energy, the horse sets out on the journey. But when the horse returns from the journey, it returns with its tedious measures. Okay. So it has used up all energy, and the uh, steps of the horse becomes quite boring, or it becomes quite like a formal riding exercise. It does not return with the same energy and enthusiasm. In other words, he says that everything in this world exists is enjoyed more in the course of its attainment than in the attainment itself. So he has tried to explain this idea with these two examples. And he then further goes on to give two examples, one more example, and this is a metaphorical example. He says, "How like a younker or a prodigal, the scarfed bark puts from her native way, hugged and embraced by the wanton wind. How like the prodigal doth she return with overweathered ribs and ragged sails, lean, rent, and beggared by the wanton wind." Let us try to understand what do we mean by wanton wind. Wanton wind, uncontrolled wind, strumpet wind. So in some text you will also find the expression strumpet. Okay. So uncontrolled, wanton. Wanton actually means a unfaithful woman. So here the wind is compared to an unfaithful woman, because an unfaithful woman changes very easily or quickly. So you see, when a ship sets out on its voyage, begins its journey, it is richly decorated with the banners and flags, with bunting, banners, and flags. And it appears to be majestic when it is setting out on a voyage. But when the ship returns to its harbor after months of voyaging or years of voyaging, do we find the ship to be in the same condition? Obviously not. Why? Because the ship has faced uncontrolled winds, violent, strong winds out in the sea, and it is wrecked or weather beaten. Okay. So the ship is weather beaten and it returns back with storm beaten sides. The sides of the ship are beaten by the storm, and it has tattered sails, ragged sails, and it appears to be torn and in an improvised condition. Thin, torn, improvised condition. You see, when a ship is setting out on a voyage, it appears to be like this, very majestic in its appearance. But when it returns, this is the condition. And why is this condition of the ship? Because of the fact that the ship has faced wanton winds out in the sea. And this ship has been metaphorically compared with the prodigal son. You know the story of the prodigal son. So, how like a younker or a prodigal? A younker means a young man, young man or the younger son. That is in the story of the prodigal son in the parable in the Bible. So, when the prodigal son left his house, he had the share of his inheritance. He was rich, he was wealthy, he had expensive clothes to wear, and he led an extravagant life. During that time, he dined off golden plates, he met with many friends, he was lured by many unfaithful women, and he lost all his wealth in that riotous living, in keeping up that extravagant lifestyle. And when he was pauperized, left with no money, he was abandoned by all his friends. The woman turned out to be unfaithful, just like the wanton wind. And the prodigal son then finally repents, filled with guilt, and returns to his house begging for forgiveness. And when he returns, his condition is different. Okay. He is wearing tattered clothes, he is in an impoverished condition, just like the ship that returns in an impoverished condition after many months and years of voyage. Okay. Is that clear? Then Salerino, just then Salerino says, "Here comes Lorenzo. More of this thereafter." Okay, so Lorenzo by that time arrives, and Graciano says that he will tell Salerino more about it on some later time. Then, when Lorenzo enters on the scene, he says, "Sweet friends." Some text is missing here, so I am reading it out. Enter Lorenzo. Lorenzo says, "Sweet friends, your patience for my long abode, not I, but my affairs, have made you wait. When you shall please to play the thieves for wives, I will watch as long for you then. Approach, here dwells my father Jew. Ho, who is within?" So he thanks his friends for having waited for Lorenzo patiently for so long. Okay. And he also tells them, informs them, that he did not deliberately delay in keeping the appointed meeting, but he had some work. So it is because of some business matters, affairs, that he was late to keep the appointed time. And he promises his friends that when they will play the thieves for wives, when they will steal away their wives, at that particular time he will also wait for them as long as they had waited for him. And then he tells them to come along with him, and he points out to Shylock's house, saying that this is the house of my father. Father here means father-in-law. And standing on the streets, he calls out, "Ho, who is within?" Okay, who is within? Anybody? Is there anybody inside? Just then, Jessica enters our in boys' clothes. In boys' clothes. Okay, disguised in boys' clothes. However, Jessica, since the scene takes place in darkness at night, Jessica is unable to see the faces of those people who were standing downstairs. Why? Because also they were dressed in masks, and it was making more difficult to recognize them in the darkness of the night. So therefore, Jessica, in order to be assured, she asked the question in return, "Who are you? Tell me," for more certainty. She wants to be very assured that who is the person calling out to her, because she knows, she swears, she knows that she knows the tongue. She knows the tongue because it is the voice of Lorenzo. But in order to be assured more, she asks Lorenzo to give his identity. Then Lorenzo tells, "Lorenzo and thy love." So he says, "I am Lorenzo and I am your lover." Then Jessica, "Lorenzo, certain, and my love indeed. For who love I so much? And now who knows but you, Lorenzo, whether I am yours?" So she also says that it is indeed true that Lorenzo is her love. And in fact, Lorenzo knows very well that whether Jessica is hers or not. Whether means Lorenzo. If Lorenzo decides to elope with Jessica, then Jessica is going to become the wife of Lorenzo. So, Lorenzo, "Heaven and thy thoughts are witness that thou art." Okay, he says, heaven and thy thoughts, God, and the love and desire of Jessica for Lorenzo is a proof that Lorenzo belongs to Jessica. And Jessica then says, "Here, catch this casket." She gives a casket to Lorenzo. You see Jessica standing in the projected rope, and she handing over a casket to Lorenzo. "Here, catch this." She throws the casket and tells Lorenzo to catch it. "It is worth the pains." It is worth the pains means it is worth all the troubles that they are going to take. So when lovers elope, they need to have money and wealth with them for the difficult times that they might face after their elopement. So it is worth all the troubles. "I am glad it is night." Okay, Jessica is very happy. She is pleased that she is doing all these things in the darkness of the night. She is glad that it is dark and Lorenzo is not able to look at Jessica, because Jessica is very much ashamed. She is filled with guilt. She is ashamed for two things: for her exchange of clothes, and also for her act of stealing away the wealthy jewels and ducats from her father's house. And this is quite foolish action, because Jessica is also a very responsible lady. She is also extremely witty, wise, and beautiful lady. Despite that, she is stealing away jewels and ducats from her father's house, and she is disguised in a man's attire, in a page's suit, which makes her feel ashamed. But love is blind, and lovers cannot see the pretty follies that themselves commit. So this is one of the romantic notions of love. According to what is the romantic notion of love? That love is blind. And when people are in love, they commit many foolish actions. So writing love letters with their blood. Okay. Just for an example. Okay. Imagining different things to be their beloved. Okay, they might stand in a corner of a house and they might be thinking of their beloved. They might be talking with their beloved, which is quite foolish. Okay. At night when they sleep, they dream as if they are hugging their beloved and sleeping. So it's quite foolish of them to think in that way. But love is blind, and all types of foolish actions are justified in love, because lovers cannot see their own foolish actions as they are blinded by love. For if the lovers could see their own foolish actions, or the lovers could see their small acts of foolishness, if the lovers could see the small acts of foolishness, even Cupid, who is Cupid? Cupid is the god of love. So here is the image of the god of love, Cupid. Okay. So even Cupid would blush to see Jessica transformed to a boy. Okay. To see Jessica to be transformed or to be dressed as a boy. And then Lorenzo, descent, for you must be my torch bearer. Descent, come down. Because they had planned to elope by taking part in the masquerade, and also by taking advantage of the darkness of the night, they can stealthily and easily elope without being noticed by anyone. And Jessica was asked to dress in a page's suit because she was to act as a torch bearer for Lorenzo in the masquerade. So when Lorenzo says, now come down and you have to act as my torch bearer, then Jessica is surprised. She says, what? Must I hold a candle to my shames? They in themselves, good sooth, are too light. Okay. So her shames means she is ashamed of her exchange of clothes, of her paid boy's dress. And she says that what? She should hold candle to expose her true identity. Because they in themselves, they means her shameful dress, they are indeed too light. They are too obvious. Okay, they are indeed light here is can be interpreted in two ways. They are too obvious. Anybody can quickly notice her dress. And then she also, it indicates her light behavior. Jessica is ashamed of being dressed as a boy and also for stealing away the ducats, which proves her light behavior. Why it is an office of discovery? It is an office of discovery means it is an office of discovery. It is an office of discovery means it is a duty of a torch bearer to light up and reveal things. But at this point of time, Jessica should be obscured. Obscured means she should be concealed. She ought to be concealed and not exposed. Then Lorenzo, so are you sweet, even in the lovely garnish of a boy. So Lorenzo assures Jessica that even if she holds the torch, becomes the torch bearer, then also she would be hidden, she would be concealed. People will not come to know about her true identity in the lovely dress garnish of a boy. Garnish means in the lovely dress of a boy. But come at once, for the close night doth play the runaway, and we are stayed for at Bassanio's feast. So he was in a hurry. Why? Because the close night, the darkness of the night, that was hiding their secrets, that were hiding their secret plans, that was proving to be advantageous for their plan of elopement, was quickly passing by. It was playing a runaway. It was slipping away. And furthermore, they were being awaited at Bassanio's feast, at Bassanio's party. And if they do not return to Bassanio's party at time, then people may suspect them. Okay. So Jessica, I will make fast the doors and gild myself with some more ducats and be with you straight. So Jessica says that she will close all the doors, she will equip herself, gild herself, she will adorn herself, enrich herself with some more ducats from her father's house, and then come right way downstairs and be with Lorenzo straight away at once. And saying this, Jessica exits from the projected roof. She enters into the house. Then Graciano, now by my hood, a Gentile and no Jew. Now by my hood here means the maybe the masking clothes that Graciano was wearing had a hood on it. Okay. And here by my hood means upon my word. It is a mild oath. And it shows the popular custom of the Elizabethans, that the Elizabethans used to swear by various parts of their dress. And the masculine clothes which Gratiano was wearing had a hood, so he was swearing by that hood that Jessica is a Gentile and no Jew. Here, Gentile can be interpreted in two ways. You see, Graciano is a taciturn, is a talkative person, and always his statements are interpreted in more than one ways. Gentile means a gentle lady. Okay. So Graciano might mean to say that Jessica is a gentle lady and she is not a Jew like her father. So Jew, as you all know, was used to be as a synonym for miserliness, for cruel heartedness. Okay. So Jessica is not like that. She is a very gentle lady. And Gentile also means a non-Jew, a heathen, a non-believer. Okay. So if he says that he is a gentle lady, then it is a compliment. And if we take the meaning that Jessica is a non-heathen, a non-believer, and she is not a Jew, then it is a sharp, bitter criticism of Jessica, that she is a Gentile. And Lorenzo takes the other meaning. So therefore Lorenzo says, beshrew me, but I love her heartily. So he tells Graciano that if you desire, you can curse me if you like. Vishnu means here, curse me if you like, but not Jessica, because he loves Jessica very dearly, very heartily, with all his heart. And why he loves Jessica? Because she is wise. If he could judge her correctly. She is fair, she is very beautiful. If his eyes have observed Jessica truly, if he is not deceived by the looks. And true, she is. And she is very honest, faithful, and constant in love, as she has proved through her act, through her decision. Because she has decided to elope with Lorenzo, to marry with Lorenzo, despite the fact that he was a Christian. And she had also stolen away the wealthy jewels and ducats from her father's house. So she is very faithful and constant in her love. And therefore, like herself, wise, fair, and true, shall she be placed in my constant soul. So Lorenzo also promises to be very faithful and true in his love towards Jessica, and he says that Jessica would always remain in his loyal heart. And just then Jessica enters below, with enriching herself with more ducats. And then Lorenzo says, "What art thou come? On, gentlemen, away. Our masquing mates by this time for a stay." So they must leave, and they leave with Jessica and Salerino. Lorenzo, Jessica, and Salerino exit, leaving Graciano alone there. Just then Antonio enters, and Antonio, since it was decided that Bassanio would leave that particular night itself, he was supposed to go the next morning after feasting with his friend, after parting with his friend, but the winds turned out to be favorable and it was right time for them to set sail to Belmont. So therefore it was decided that his departure will not be delayed, he will not wait till morning, he will leave that particular night itself. And since Graciano was to accompany Bassanio in his trip to Belmont, therefore Antonio was desperately, frantically looking out for Graciano. So Antonio, who is there? Graciano, Signor Antonio. Antonio, fie, Graciano. Where are all the rest? It is 9 o'clock. It's a shame, Graciano. Where have you all been? It's almost 9 o'clock. And all their friends are waiting for them. And Antonio informs Graciano that there would be no masks that particular night. I told you, masks was a costume spectacle. And the idea of this masks was dropped at the last moment. There was no masks conducted on the stage. Why? because the purpose for conducting the marks has been served. So the marks was staged, was planned out to be conducted because to facilitate the elopement of Lorenzo and Jessica. Now since the purpose is served, that is Lorenzo and Jessica has eloped with each other, therefore there was no need for the mask. And moreover, technically, it might have been very difficult for the dramatist to stage the marks on the stage. It would have involved a lot many characters, different types of costumes, and that would have also taken up some time in the play. Okay. So to save that time, this idea of the marks was dropped at the final moment. So Antonio informs Graciano about the cancellation of the mask, and he also informs that the winds were favorable. Therefore, it is decided that Bassanio would presently leave for Belmont. And Antonio had been looking for Graciano for the same reason, and he had sent almost 20 men to look out for Antonio. This is exaggeration. He might not have sent 20 people, might have sent someone to look for Graciano, but when he did not find, so Antonio himself started looking for him. Then Graciano also, he says that he is glad on it. He is very happy that Bassanio is leaving for Belmont that particular moment, and he is happy that he also is delighted because he also would be leaving to Belmont. So he will be straight away under sail and they would be gone that particular night. So the scene concludes with the rhyming couplet, that is delight and night. There are only two lines, and this two lines means a couplet, and the scene concludes with that rhyming couplet, showing that the present action is completed. Okay, the rhyming couplet is used to show that the present action is completed. The elopement of Jessica and Lorenzo is completed, and now the action of the scene will move to Belmont. So the use of rhyming couplet in Shakespearean dramas is a sign for the curtains to be dropped. So the curtains are dropped, and now the next scene will be staged in Belmont. So this is all about the scene Act 2, Scene 6. I hope this is clear. If any doubts, you can ask me in the Google Meet class. Thank you and stay blessed.